Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. We are here today with Dr. Charles Scott of Wellness and Prevention. Dr. Charles Scott is an internal medicine physician. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Scott.
Well, thank you.
We're going to be talking today about better health. We're going to give you some tips for living healthier, and Dr. Scott has lots of good information for you today. Dr. Scott, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and where your practice is and how you got into this area of medicine?
Well, located in northeast Atlanta. I've been in Atlanta for probably the last 20 years, originally from Chicago, and I had a desire to always want to help people, and that's why I went into the field of medicine.
And you're an internal medicine physician?
That is correct.
And so you will take care of patients on a general basis, on whatever's going on with them, you're going to help them.
Generally, what internists do, we take care of adults, no children. If you can remember, no children, no surgery, and no delivery of babies, and that's pretty much encompasses everything else we do.
So I got a bum knee. No, I'm only kidding. Well, I can just imagine when you're out. Actually, we'll just digress for a minute here, because the first question, hi, I'm so-and-so, what do you do? And then as soon as you tell someone you're a doctor, do you hear about every ailment under the sun that they have?
Yes, but I also do a flip-flop. I tell them there's no one shoe that fits all. Therefore, I always tell them to, always, consult their primary care physician or provider and let them make a decision, because it's difficult and very challenging, because there are things that we say in general that may apply to people in general, but, a particular person has uniqueness, and that particular uniqueness, you may miss some points if you don't know certain aspects of their disease history.
Mm-hmm. And it's important to talk to your doctor because they know you.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the idiosyncrasies of you, as I always say. Everybody has idiosyncrasies, right? So let's talk about better health. What do you recommend? Let's talk about the top 3 tips for better health, and then we'll delve into that a little bit more deeply.
Well, let me explain how I really got into wellness and prevention. Many years ago, before it was fashionable to even recommend that people take supplements, I started taking them just to kind of see what they would do for me. And as time went on, what I discovered was that more and more articles were coming out about different aspects of health and vitamins and supplements, nutrients and the like. Seemed to start showing up in the medical literature, and therefore I thought, well, maybe it's time to start introducing individuals to how to better take care of themselves.
And, we hear about supplements a lot, and, it is a growing trend, but I still think a lot of folks aren't aware of the benefits of supplements. And you always hear that debate. Do you take the supplements, or are they not good for you, and you just really need to eat more fruits and vegetables?
Well, it has been said that supplements are not a substitute for healthy eating. We have to do both. It can't be a partial this, partial that. When you start doing partial, then you're not getting the full benefits of supplements.
And you are very healthy. You and I actually have talked before. You hadn't lost weight. You've just lived a healthy life for a long time. Is that right?
Yes.
And the poor folks on the radio, because I talk about me all the time. We're going to talk about me again. But for you folks who've been with me over the years, you know that I had my own personal journey in finding healthy ways to live better. Right. And I lost 75 pounds. And so some of those things that we're going to talk about today, I'm going to intervene on, because I was that person that wasn't doing anything about living in a healthy manner. And now I'm so cognizant. I don't always make the right choices, but I'm cognizant of what those choices are. And when I get off the bandwagon, I'm very conscious to get back on that bandwagon. So in terms of the supplements, let's go back to that. Because, you're supposed to eat 5 vegetables and fruits a day, and who can really eat that much? When you're really eating well, you're eating a lot. And it's hard to get it all in. So what would be the top supplements you would recommend that folks should take?
Well, even before talking about supplements, I think certainly I always tell people we live in a toxic environment, and therefore the air we breathe is toxic, not healthy, and the food we eat certainly has its issues. And therefore patients commonly will ask me, what's the solution? I tell them, well, don't breathe. And once they get over that, that joke, so to speak, then I tell them, I said, the best thing you can do is to, one of the best things you can do is certainly to decide what's healthy. When you make a decision to put something in your mouth, decide, hey, is this doing me more good or more harm? And you have to start there, because sometimes we want the quick fix, and unfortunately, we don't have the best diet in the world.
And not only that, you think you're eating healthy, and you're really not.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, especially in America.
Yes.
And it's so frustrating. I didn't really get on the organic kick while I was losing weight. So I really wasn't as healthy as I thought I was. I was successful at losing weight, but there's so much fed into our animals and sprayed on our vegetables. And so sometimes you could be trying to do all the right things, but you're still putting such toxic things into your body. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Due to the limits of time, I would recommend 2 DVDs that you can commonly get through Netflix. And one of them is called Food Incorporated, and the other one is called Forks Over Knives. I think if one will look at both of those, not one or the other, but both of those, they will find a lot of useful information as to what's happening with our foods. And
mostly here in America.
Yes.
Right?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And the other problem is how much more expensive it is to eat well. After we watch these DVDs, we're going to be motivated to try at least to change our habits and eat better. But it does cost more to eat healthy.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And, the top 3, as you mentioned earlier, that I always push are, number 1, water. Number 2, staying away from a lot of junk food or fast foods. And number 3, exercising. Okay. The most important one to me is water. We're constantly ingesting a lot of things that are unhealthy for us, and unfortunately this produces a lot of acid in our blood. And I always tell people, I say, look here, if you have a strong acid, what happens to it when you start adding more water? It becomes weaker and weaker. And to me, that's always a good thing, because it means your body has less stress to deal with.
It's funny. Well, it's not funny, but I'm going to tell a story. I was on my way home from South Carolina yesterday. I was in South Carolina for work, and the person I was traveling with said, Jeannie, let me read you this article. So she started reading from her iPhone, and it started out something like this. As I sit here on this very comfortable couch with this dim lighting and nice aroma in the air, I see people coming to get their drug fix from their dealer and their addiction fed until they can get back to the next time. They come in and they get their addiction, and I'm paraphrasing here, and then they sit down and I watch them inhale it, and I watch their demeanor and their facial expressions just become sheer delight. I'm sitting in Panera Bread. And that's not a knock on Panera, because I love Panera, but it went on to talk about carbohydrates and how it's even more addictive than your typical drugs that people go to their dealer to get. It's that same kind of a high, but how detrimental to the body that the carbohydrates are that they're eating, even more so than the drugs that have an immediate impact on the body and affect the brain, how the carbohydrates are an even more dangerous addiction. Although it takes longer to affect the body, it is even more powerful. And then it went on to talk about laboratory rats, and they would choose the high sugary content food that's put in front of them above cocaine or any of these other drugs. And so the choice of addiction was that high sugar carbohydrate food. And how scary that is, because that's so true. You eat it, and then 45 minutes later, your body wants more, because that's what carbohydrates do. And so just thinking about eating healthily and the effects that it has on our body, truly what we're eating is causing an addiction if we're eating a lot of junk and a lot of carbohydrates, because one of the things about that type of food is it makes you want more, and you're not satisfied till you get more. Right.
You know, you're absolutely right, and you bring up an interesting point, and that's this, is that the reason why we feel this hunger is because the products that we're taking in are not nutrient rich. They are nutrient poor, and therefore we're likely to eat until we get that satiation.
And that goes back to what I know from my own personal experience. When I was eating healthy, I wasn't able to eat as much as I was supposed to eat through the day because I was full. You really eat that amount of vegetables and that amount of fruit and that amount of good protein, really you're not hungry at night when you go home. Whereas when you're eating a lot of junk and carbohydrates and you go home, or maybe you eat it a lot in the morning, you go and get your bread fix and your muffin fix and your bagel fix, and then you skip lunch and you go home and you can't get enough carbohydrates for dinner. But it's true. If you make the right choices, you're more full. I have felt that. Have you felt that before, Doc?
Oh, absolutely. And not to go back, to go back on what I was alluding to earlier, is about water. If you think about it, if one is thirsty and they drink a soda, they'll still feel thirsty. But if they drink water, that thirst is fulfilled.
You know, and then something just came out too. I'm sounding very well read, but it just so happens I've read a lot this week. An article just came out about diet soda. Did you read that, Dr. Scott?
Which particular
It
article?
was specific to diet soda. We all know sodas are zero good for you, and they just maybe wake you up with the caffeine, but they have no nutrients in them. But now even the diet sodas, folks are thinking they're doing better by asking for the diet soda, but that's not even real sugar. That's the aspartame, so they're even more harmful to you than if you were to order a regular soda.
Again, water. Preferably.
Okay. So then what I'm hearing too is and it is number one on your list, water. And my kids have a fit because I won't keep soda in the house. I truly drink
Good for you.
water or tea or coffee. Those are my three staples. I hardly ever drink lemonade or iced tea or anything. But the sodas with our children, it's hard to control what they drink at school or when they're out, and they can have it as a treat. But I won't even keep it in the house because I don't want them to get in the habit of drinking soda all day long.
You know, that's interesting. And, you know, there's a saying that when California gets a cold, the East Coast gets pneumonia. And one of the things that they've done, that they've taken a lot of these snacks and out of the cafeterias in the school system.
I think I read about that this week, too. They banned soda machines in their schools this week, didn't they? That's a great trend. I hope that we continue with that. And I've always said, if you want a piece of fruit, where do you go? We don't have a fast food fruit vendor. It's so hard to just grab a orange or some grapes or blueberries or a banana. It's more expensive.
Right.
And we have to start eating it for the demand and for them to be able to sell it so that it doesn't go bad.
Right. I think one of the problems that we're bombarded by many commercials on a daily basis. I heard one report that said that the average person sees about 3,000 commercials a day. And if you influence that much, then you have to kind of do some mental deconditioning, anti-brainwash yourself, so to speak. And we have to be aware of, as I said earlier, when we put something in our mouth, ask ourselves, is this doing me more harm or good? And then decide not to do that.
And it's so tough because, you see so many successful people. They have success in their career. Maybe they had success in athletics, success in many different ways in their life, but they struggle with their health and their weight. And so we know as we're talking about all of this, it seems very easy, logical, rational. It's a lot harder to practice. And I want you to know, just thinking about that article that was read to me yesterday, it's an addiction. And so in order for you to change to not be addicted, to not crave it, it's going to take some time. You have to wean yourself off of that addiction of eating poorly by making better choices. And over time, I promise you, because nobody ate worse than I did, you don't have to lose 70 pounds by eating healthy. And so over time, you actually end up craving healthier foods. I now crave an orange when I want sugar, or if I'm thirsty and I don't have water around. Or if I'm thirsty, I crave water. I don't crave other drinks like lemonade or iced tea. And so you do train your mind and train your brain, and it's okay if it takes you a while, and it's okay if you don't make the right choices all the time. But please remember, this is an addiction as well, just like every other addiction, like smoking or drinking alcohol, and you've got to power your brain to make those changes, and it may take some time. Little by little, you'll get there.
Speaking of time, it generally takes 21 days to change a habit. And certainly the first few days are challenging, but it can be done. And, two questions here. Well, two issues. Number one, people ask me, well, why are you so motivated? And I tell them, look here, what you got to understand is that being male, if I were not a physician, I would not have taken care of myself as well as I do. But seeing this day in and day out, I have an advantage because I see you can be 30 years old or 30 years young. You can be 50 years old or 50 years young, or you can be 80 years old or 80 years young. Either way, you're 30, 50, or 80.
I love that.
So it's a choice.
And it is true, when you work in healthcare, you're reminded every day, our body is a vessel that really needs to be taken care of. And sometimes I feel like we're on a soapbox here, but, the show is called Better Living, and your practice is called Wellness and Prevention. And what we see towards the end of life, if we could just rewind the clock and help people get educated and informed to make better choices for themselves, they can have a much better quality of life later on in their later years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we talked about water and the importance of water. We talked a little bit about diet, mostly about carbohydrates, but how about we just kind of give folks a simple recipe, not even recipe, but a simple guide to what choices they can make to eat healthier?
Well, it all truly comes down to balancing calories with exercise. And my favorite saying is this: if you take in more calories than you burn, you're going to gain weight. Okay, and if you're taking less calories than you burn, you're going to lose weight. And there is no such thing as a perfect diet. People like to give all of these diets out, and it's really truly about calories burned and calories taken in.
But some things that you put in your body help you burn more fat than other things, or help your metabolism speed up versus not. So can we give some folks some tips on what some great types of foods are to burn your fat and to increase your metabolism?
Well, again, we're back, as I see it, we're still talking about fruits and vegetables. There is no perfect fruit. There is no perfect exercise. And I frequently say, people commonly ask me, what is the best exercise for you? I said, the one that works. Some people prefer tennis. Some people prefer walking. Some people prefer running. And I always say, if you don't prefer anything, then certainly walking is your best exercise. When it comes to eating, I think we have to sit down. There's no particular food that everyone loves. And we have to decide, of those foods that we do want, we sometimes have to limit the amount. For example, I will see patients who have diabetes and they love rice. and potatoes. And I said, well, you can have rice or potatoes. However, use a smaller portion. Take an ice cream scooper full and shave off the top. That's your limit. And another little trick of the trade is to, not eat everything on your plate.
Yes, absolutely. And train your brain to portion yourself or
Exactly.
put things on. I'm using a smaller plate. I know that was kind of a trend that the media put out a year ago or maybe even before that, but I paid attention to it a year ago. It really works.
As long as you don't go back for seconds.
Well, that's true. That's true too. But it's amazing when I looked at just the little bit of. First, I had these huge, big white plates that hardly even fit in my dishwasher. Then I went down to a smaller size dinner plate. But now I'm actually pulling the salad plate out or the dessert plate out to put my dinner on that plate. And it's perfectly good. I just put less on there. And then you leave some to train your brain. You don't have to eat everything that's in front of you.
Absolutely. Speaking of salads, that's one of my true pet peeves. And unfortunately, most of us do not eat enough live foods. Everything is cooked or processed. So I generally recommend, if possible, 2 salads per day. That's the optimal.
Because you're getting the fresh vegetables. You can't get around it. And typically a salad is not going to come out of a bag or a box.
Right.
It's going to be grown vegetables, hopefully.
Sure.
And so it's real food, like you
Right.
said, not processed.
And without the additives.
And without
Such
the
as
additives, right.
High-fat dressing, the bacon.
Okay, that's the
Cheese.
hardest part. Because I love a salad, but man, giving up those creamy dressings, that was difficult.
We all have choices.
You know what I did find? I'm going to give folks a tip is a little olive oil with some lemon juice and salt and pepper. You'd be very surprised at all the different tastes that go together in there. And the salt I use is Morton's Light Salt, which is very low on the sodium, but it has good potassium intake. Morton's Light Salt comes in like a royal blue instead of a dark blue container. But when you mix that light salt with the pepper, if you like pepper, and the lemon juice with the olive oil, you still have a little olive oil in there, but it gives a nice taste. If you're like me, I went for the ranch. I went for the peppercorn. I went for the blue cheese. I didn't like any of the vinegar-based dressings. And so to me, to have a healthy salad without the high bad-for-you dressings, I had to try this mixture. So try that, and I hope that works for you and you're able to eat a healthy salad like me. Any other tips? Any other good dressings you can think of?
No, but when it comes to seasoning, I generally have a tendency to tell people to stay from a lot of the seasons that we normally use and stick with lemon pepper. Yeah. Because we as Americans, we consume too much salt.
Yes, the salt is bad, but there is some great seasonings out there. I like the Mrs. Dash seasonings. Would you recommend those? Because they're supposed to be healthy for you.
On occasion, yes. As far as the low salt, yes. But in general, no. I'm still a lemon and pepper person.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, well, we're going to talk more about that after the break then, because I'm very curious. I always thought the herbs and the spices were a good way to lower the salt intake and the sauce on your food so that you could eat healthier. So I have lots more questions to come. Stick with us, and we'll be right back. Hello, I'm Jean Pete, and I welcome you back to our show, Better Living. Better Living is brought to you by the Homestead Hope Foundation and is sponsored by Homestead Hospice, where commitment to education and premier hospice care helps patients and families through life's most important journey. Welcome back. I'm Jean Pete, and you're still listening to Better Living. And I'm still here today with Dr. Charles Scott and Nurse Judy Gifford. Judy, I've kind of left you in the background here, so we'll try to pull you in for some of your stories as well. We're talking about better health, some tips for better health. Dr. Scott's practice is called Wellness and Prevention, and he sees on a daily basis what happens when we don't take care of our bodies. So we're hoping to educate and inform you today on tips to take care of the vessel that is your body so that you can live better for a much longer time and stay with us and enjoy a life with your family and grandkids. So we were talking before the break about spices and herbs, and I had mentioned Mrs. Dash because I love Mrs. Dash, and we're not promoting any kind of products here, but when I was trying to get healthier, I was cutting sauces out, which, is horrible because they're so darn good. And so I went to using tons of spices. You should see my spice rack. But you're saying, yeah, not so much. Stick with lemon and pepper.
Exactly.
Why is that?
Well, I think sometimes, we want to have our cake and eat it too.
I always want to have my cake and eat it too. That's the problem.
That's the problem. Exactly. That is the problem. Yeah.
But like fresh rosemary and dill, I love using herbs and spices and Cajun seasoning and no?
I mean, those are fine. What I'm saying is that we all have individual taste. And if one can come up with something that is not injurious to the body and it's healthy, I mean, that's fine, because we have to kind of please our taste buds. Because if it doesn't taste here on the tip of the tongue, then we don't care about the rest. Our interest is the front of the mouth, not down in the stomach.
So let's help these folks.
Our focus should be the reverse.
Yeah. I'm getting excited here. So you're listening to us, whether you're living healthy or not, we've still got your attention here, and I want to keep your attention, and I'm curious too. So we're going to start talking about healthy recipes. Let's truly give folks some tips on stuff that's delicious, that is good for them. What's your favorite?
I'm still a fruits and vegetable person.
You are.
And it depends, always my favorite answer to that question is, are you a Granny Smith, apple lover, McIntosh, Washington State, or whatever? It really depends, because you're going to eat whichever, all of them are healthy for you, but you're going to eat whichever one you like better. Mm-hmm. So there's no, again, one shoe that fits all.
Okay.
And we can't take away all of the goodies.
No, we can't take away all of the goodies,
Yeah.
but I will tell you from my own personal experience that, I didn't know that things could be good without a whole lot of sauces put on them and without a whole lot of cheese put on them. And so I started cooking without and leaving some ingredients out. Mm-hmm. And as simple as it is, and I don't even know if you eat meat, but a chicken breast, just put salt, Morton's light salt, and pepper on it, and put it 3 or 4 minutes on each side on top of the stove, and then bake it in the oven with a little olive oil, on the stove too first. But even if you're not a cook, you can put a little olive oil in a pan on top of the stove, put your chicken in a Ziploc bag, and squirt some Morton's light salt and some pepper and maybe even some garlic, and throw it on the stove for 3 or 4 minutes on each side to get it brown, and then bake it for a half an hour at about 375, 400, and check it to make sure it's cooked. It is so simple, whether you're a cook or not, and I promise you, it's juicy and it has a lot of flavor, and it's as healthy for you as you can get if you're eating meat.
Sure. That sounds delectable. I'm not a big red meat fan. However, I do, fish and fowl. But, the interesting thing with chicken is that the real flavor is in the skin. Unfortunately,
I know.
That's where all of the issues are.
But you'd be surprised, even to get skinless and boneless, get those little breasts and put them in. I promise you, folks, if you try that, I really do think you're going to like it. I cook it for my children, who are the worst eaters, because I'm now focusing on them, now that I've focused on myself. And they said, this chicken is delicious. And it's so simple and easy. Anybody can cook it, whether you're a cook or not. But you're right. I love the skin. And if I buy it with skin on it, I eat it. So I buy it boneless and skinless because I know I can't not eat that delicious skin. So, but then you hear too, there's a lot of nutrients in the skin.
But you don't hear about the toxins in the skin.
Right.
And see, that's what concerns me. We hear about the good. We got to, if I'm going to make an intelligent decision, give me the pros and the cons. Not just the pros.
That's true. In
because
everything.
I need to know that to make educated decisions, give me all information and let me or the individual make that decision. And once you make the decision, certainly you're informed, and you have to live with the consequences, be they good or bad.
And that's true, because so often the facts are skewed, and you really get a one-sided story. I mean, we could talk politics, but I am going to completely choose not to. But isn't that what we're taught in America. Everybody takes half the facts, skews the facts, and tries to get you swayed either way. It's so nice when you can educate completely and give people the power to make the right decisions for them based on the truth. So that's great.
You know, what's interesting, one of my favorite pet peeves is this. If you take an individual who lives in a rural area in some third world country, they have a very low incidence of cancer and heart disease.
Do they?
Yes. However, you bring those same individuals to the United States, when they adapt to our diet, their incidence of cancer and heart disease equals ours. And as a matter of fact, most of us, 2/3 of us, will die of cancer, heart disease related problems. So
see,
that's
now,
something to think about.
It's scary, honestly, because if they're in third worlds, they're eating rice, right?
Yeah.
But what are we putting in our land? And what are we spraying on our crops? And what are we feeding our it's so hard to get away from that.
Exactly.
And even if you're
Exactly.
buying organic, are you truly getting away from that too? I don't know. We're kind of, our hands are tied here.
Our hands are tied, true enough, but there's regular, there's organic, and there's certified organic. If you really want the best organic, it's the certified organic. The issue with certified organic is expensive.
It is expensive.
Yeah, it truly is. Yeah.
But so are doctor's bills,
Yes.
and so is losing work.
Yes.
So you really have to kind of weigh it.
Exactly. We're back to choices again. And we have to understand that we need to make better choices. And the only way we can make better choices is become more well informed about our choices.
And back to what you said is someone coming from a third world country and coming here, their incidence of cancer goes up. And we also know through studies that if you ate poorly and you started eating healthy, your chances are drastically decreased because
Yes.
you're putting more healthy products into your body and you're exercising and you're drinking a lot of water.
Yes.
And the water, too, will flush some of those toxins out. So that's why it's so important, 8 to 10 glasses a day.
That's kind of a myth. And the way that it's interesting.
There we
it's
go
interesting
again.
you brought that up. The 8 glasses a day is basically, they got that from, as I understand it, a 25-year-old male who weighed about 150 pounds. For an individual who weighs, for example, 200 pounds, 8 glasses of water a day is not enough.
Not
And if
enough.
you exercise, you certainly need more.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how do you figure out how much is right for you? For 200 pounds,
Well,
10
what
to
you
12?
would do, you take your weight, divide it by 2, then divide that number by 8. That'll tell you how many 8-ounce glasses of water. So for a 200-pound person, we're talking about 16 glasses of water a day.
Holy cow.
I know. Isn't that interesting?
I don't
See,
think
we are so brainwashed, and we hear that all the time.
I don't think I know anybody that drinks 16 glasses of water a day.
I know lots of people who I've converted over the years. I mean, they started off drinking 2 and 3 a day. And see, one of the other issues, is interesting. On one of the doors in my office, I have this sign. And it basically says your vital organs, your heart, brain, kidney, everything else. And the second line only says, only take care of the ones you want to keep. And if you read that, we all have choices.
Yes,
And-
that's true. Well, okay, so we've talked about diet. We've talked about exercise. We've talked about the importance of water. You've got some other things on this list I want to talk about, too.
Okay.
Rest and meditation. Can we talk about that now?
Yes, rest is an interesting thing. There's no one shoe that fits all. There's some people who feel that, hey, I need 8 hours, and that's what they need. There are others who say, well, hey, I need 3 hours. That's what they need. So it's an individual thing.
Is that true? People can actually, because I've known folks that get about 5 hours of sleep a night. I don't know how they do it.
I have
Truly, bodies can only need 5 hours of sleep a night?
It depends upon the person, provided that when they wake up, they are fully rested. It's one thing to get 3 hours of sleep a night because of other motivating factors, such as income and those other issues. But if you get 3 hours and then, hey, you feel fine, hey, that's great. But, the other individuals, for example, I think Ben Franklin, they said he got about, 2 or 3 hours, about 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and he would break that up. I mean, he would just go. But
Okay, so now that you say that, I need to find about 3 hours more in my day. So how do I train my body to need 5 hours of sleep versus 8? Is that possible?
well, again, we're back to my favorite saying, we all have choices. The way I do it is this. realizing that we all have 24 hours a day. Therefore, it's about choices. We may have to eliminate some things, but there's certain things that we must put in our weekly calendar, so to speak. That is how much rest we're going to get, work time, eating time, exercising time. You have to put those in.
And that's probably how we're going to transfer into the talk about meditation. But if you're not getting a full 8 hours of sleep at night, which this is so fascinating to me because everything you read says people who sleep 8 hours a night function better during the day. But truly, what you're saying is you don't really need that. I'm assuming some people.
Yeah, some people. There are a few people who need 10. Mm-hmm. Those that need 12, I begin to question, because we need to look into other motivating factors such as an occult disease of some sort.
Oh, okay. Yeah. But if you maybe don't get your 8 hours of sleep at night, but you learn how to meditate throughout the day, is that making up for the lack of sleep at nighttime?
Well, yes. The power naps, I think, are great. For people that can do them, it only takes a few minutes. It doesn't take that long. But most of us will not make the time to do that.
And when you say power nap, how long is a power nap? 20 minutes?
Oh, no. It could be short as 5 minutes, 3 minutes, Something that you do, you completely let the mind go blank and you just meditate in a quiet environment.
So you're not necessarily sleeping.
No,
you're just
not sleep at all.
resting your mind.
Yeah, resting. It's just an altered mental state is what it is.
And any tips for folks on how to do that or learn how to do that?
Well, probably something that I would like to give a tip on, and that's this. A lot of times we're being bombarded with so many things coming into our brains, and our brain says, well, which one do you want me to work on? So it starts work on this, and then something else comes in, and then it says work on this. And so we're kind of bombarded, don't know which way to go, and we're jumping from here to there, here to there. And I always tell people, focus on the most important thing at that time and forget about the distractions.
Mm-hmm. Judy, do you meditate?
Actually, I do not. But when I leave here tonight, I'm going to buy some fish. I'm going to use some lemon pepper seasoning on it. I'm going to do some Pilates, and I'm going to drink a lot of water.
Well, I'm glad we motivated you, Judy. I hope you folks out there are as motivated as Judy is. I don't meditate, but as you're talking, Dr. Scott, I lead a very busy life. Sometimes people say, I don't know where you get all your energy. And I think it's because I don't let myself come down from it. It's like an adrenaline constantly. That can't be good for me. And like you were saying, as you were talking, it was so easy for me to identify. So I have to think that the folks listening to the show today can also identify, especially in these 2-parent working households these days, everybody is bombarded with thoughts on what they have to do for work and thoughts on what they have to do for their kids and thoughts on what they have to do for their parents who maybe they're taking care of as well in this sandwich generation, and thoughts on the routine and thoughts on the vacation that's coming up and money and finances, and just being able to shut that off and learning how to meditate. And like you said, just think of the one thing and push everything else out, and do that for 5 minutes?
No, as long as that's, if it takes a minute to get that answer, then that's fine, but focus on what you're doing. Too many times we're thinking about this, the concept of this. And, there's been a study that shows that if you take a monthly calendar, and if you have individuals write down the first of the month, everything they're going to worry about for that month, and then compare that to the end of the month, and you will find, without a doubt, that most of those things, 95+% of the time, they didn't have to worry about those things. Because what's going to happen is going to happen. Mm-hmm. You got to be able to, continue to understand that what you want to be continually going forward. You may have a lateral move, illness or whatever, but it's a lateral move, not a backward move. We always want to go forward.
And I think sometimes in this crazy world that we live in with the need, because everything is priced for a 2-parent working income. So the house prices have gone up, and the food prices have gone up, and the car prices have gone up. So now you need a high income just to live the way our parents and grandparents lived, in my opinion. And so with all of those demands, we do, I think, have a lot more to worry about. And maybe that's subjective of me, but I feel like in the here and now, it's a tough life. It's tough to lead a balanced, healthy life. And I think sometimes we have to look at where are we at, and are we balanced, and how much truly is on our plate, and meditate on it, of course, but also we have to take control.
You are absolutely right, and you bring up a number of interesting points, and that is this. We are back to, again, making decisions. I've seen individuals over the years, just extremely successful, but out of balance and unhealthy. And then something breaks down, boom, 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 and then they come to reality. And reality says, hey, I didn't need all of that. I thought I needed.
Yeah, and I want to help folks, because if you're feeling that way, and it sounds so, metaphysical and philosophical, but truly, if you're out of balance or if you're completely overwhelmed, how long can you function like that? Something's going to happen. There is going to be an illness, or you're running in overdrive and you're going to fall and hurt yourself and break something. And that's going to cause you to have to think about it. And I truly want you all to think about, where are you at in your life, and what can you work on to lessen the load? Because if you do it now, you're going to live healthier and you're going to live a better life. Mm-hmm. Whether it's financial, what can you cut out so you're not so stressed about your finances, or whether it's you're working 80 hours a week or even 60 hours a week and not feeling like you're getting enough time at home with your children. How can you balance that better? And even in Atlanta, sometimes that's the commute. And if I can motivate you just to say, maybe I ought to look for a new job that's near my home. That's the first step in providing that balance in your life, because you've got to keep you healthy, to take care of your ailing parent, to take care of your children. If you're in that sandwich generation, please focus on that. I recently actually took a leave of absence for 2 months because I was so out of balance. I had been working my entire life away, and it hit me like a train. Jeannie, you can't function this way. You got to figure out how to get more balance in your life. And you need to focus on your house and your family, and you need to rearrange stuff. And financially, it caused me a lot more stress. But in every other aspect of my world, I am so much more balanced. So now I'm getting myself back on track financially. I cannot stress enough to anybody listening to this show today, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling out of balance, you probably are. And it's going to affect your health if you don't take it in your own hands today. So drink all the water you want, eat as well as you can, exercise, all of that is good. But until you get balance in your life, you're not going to be able to focus on anything else, in my opinion.
Oh, I certainly agree with that. It's all about balance. And once you're balanced, you'll find that you're better able to handle all of these different challenges that we're faced with each and every day. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, like I said before, as you alluded to, the things you think are important are not as important as you think they are. And especially when you lose them.
That's true.
Being your health or finances.
That's true. Yeah. Or family, because you didn't spend enough time with them.
One of my favorite sayings is this. I always ask people, I said, on your deathbed, are you going to be asking yourself, I wish I would have spent more time at the office?
That's true. That's true. Or even for your own peace of mind, because maybe your loved one is suffering from a terminal illness right now. And if you're not going to be the kind of person that can forgive yourself if you don't feel like you gave them enough time, then for yourself, try to figure out how to do that more so that you can please yourself and go on living as healthy as possible in mind and body and spirit. So again, back to what you had to say, it's all about personal choices and personal decisions and personal likes, and whether you like a Macintosh apple or Granny Smith apple or whatever. But I hope that we've given you some tips on living healthier. Dr. Scott, can you tell the folks how they can get a hold of you if they want to talk to you Or are you accepting new patients? We didn't even talk about your practice, really.
Yes, the company is called Wellness and Prevention. We're at 2812 Spring Road in Atlanta. Office number 770-431-8511. 770-431-8511.
And we know you're an internal medicine physician, and so you take care of a lot of folks who are further down the path. Maybe they were healthy and they're not any longer, or they weren't healthy and they've got some diseases as a result of that. And so are you taking new patients on at this time?
Yes, we are.
Okay. And Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance?
Medicare, Medicaid, private insurance. We work with people,
Okay.
I did not go into medicine for its financial rewards, but more for my personal rewards, which is I love taking care of people.
And one of the things I want to talk about, too, we talked very briefly about exercise, but I'm a stickler about helping people just get started. And so if you're not feeling well, if you can't walk a mile, it really and truly doesn't matter. If you're in a wheelchair and you can just stretch your legs and stretch your arms for 15 minutes, you're going to help yourself and you're going to strengthen your muscles. And then maybe in a week, you might be able to do it for 20, 25 minutes. And then maybe in a month, you might be able to do it for an hour. And then when you're up and walking, you might actually be able to walk down the hall, or you might be able to walk a half a mile very slowly. And it'll just go on from there. So whatever your baseline is, wherever you're at with exercise, just push yourself. If it's 10 minutes, if it's 15 minutes, if it's moving your arms, if it's moving your legs, whatever you can do to help get your oxygen flowing, to help get your blood flowing, to help your body feel better and energize itself is what you can do. So diabetic, COPD, chronic heart failure, whatever you're suffering from. Wouldn't you agree, Dr. Scott? The smallest amount of exercise, feel good about yourself.
Absolutely. And we should also have noticed that whenever we exercise, how good we feel afterwards, because we're producing those positive chemicals in our bodies that make us feel good. And when we're stressed and worried, we produce those chemicals that are negative, and that make us feel even worse. So we have a choice.
And if you haven't been to your doctor, please see your doctor at least annually. And if you don't have a doctor and you're interested in talking to Dr. Scott more about living a healthier life, please remember to contact him at 770-431-8511. I'm Jeannie Pete. Judy, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you,
Dr. Scott, it was a sheer pleasure.
Oh, the pleasure was mine.
I'm Jeannie Pete. Thanks for listening. Have a blessed day and week ahead. And listen here, same time next week and every week. Homestead Hope Foundation is your resource for a healthy life. God bless.